any direction we want to go.
Perfect.
All right, so I just started the live stream.
Great.
Um, and then what I do is I kind of watch it as well
Okay.
on my phone, and I can see who. Oh, there we go. Look at that live. Um, so here's what. Yeah, I'm just gonna show this screen and then that chart.
Okay.
Where are you located? You're in New York, right?
Yeah. So I live in Lewiston, New York, and which is about 30 minutes north of Buffalo. It's about a mile from the Canadian border, and I'm
Okay.
actually since COVID, I have two young ones, and working from home proved pretty challenging. With first, the first year of life crying, and then the second year of life, a daughter that wanted to play with me constantly. So about a year ago, there's a business incubator that's owned by the university I went to in the next town over. And so I've been working out of this business incubator called Trek for just about a year, and I love it. So I'm currently sitting in Niagara Falls, New York, but live in Lewiston, New York.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thing. I've got two kids at home, and there's between my wife and the two kids, and also all competing for a place to do homework or go to school and work.
Yeah.
I was like, that's enough. I went back to the office, and ironically, we live in downtown Chicago.
Okay.
The safest spot is in your office. There's nobody there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't too bad with existing customers and things that understood, two crying kids in the background, but it made prospecting and, cold calling, somewhat more difficult with distractions, but it's great. And I'm far more productive, I think, being outside the house than maybe inside the house. So it's been a blessing to find this place.
Sure. All right. Perfect. So we'll kick it off here. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SmartMarket call. It is Friday, December 17th, and we've kind of changed lanes a little bit here today. We've brought in Clayton Miller, who is an expert in hardwood lumber. Now, you may want to, maybe wonder what does hardwood lumber have to do with our softwood construction market? I kind of think it has a little bit of everything to do with it. All these markets are intertwined. As Clayton and I talked before, we'll discuss it a little bit more, but he can see the collaboration or the how the two markets work together. So with that, I am going to just take a moment. Ashley is on the road today, and so I'll talk a little bit about the market. Very, very strong. Fastest market move I've ever seen. I think it's fastest market move in recent history. Of course, we doubled prices in 30 days in lumber. This week it appears as though we may have plateaued just a little bit. The cash market was definitely catching up to where the futures market was trading, but people were caught off guard without a doubt. Trade of the week. We had a customer who took a product called Northern Species, which is stud. It was a stud product, and it's a mix of spruce and hem fir and Doug fir, and they just needed product. They needed the studs, so they were going to get that product in and deal with their customers using it when the time came. But I know they felt strongly their customers would have been happy with having studs versus no studs. So that was the product. People are scrambling. When we had the Matt Lehman show yesterday, we kind of talked about maybe 4 to 5, 6 months worth of buying was crammed into potentially a 30-day period. And of course, that gives your relative demand a little bit higher strength, and the actual supply was, the reality of a 30-day window. So, we saw prices escalate significantly. Where do we go from here? That's a very good question. We're kind of halfway between the highs of the move in the spring and the lows of this summer. So, if you look at it like a teeter-totter, we could go either direction really from here. But that's enough about the market. Let's introduce Clayton. Hello, Clayton Miller. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate the
Doing
opportunity.
good. So, all right, you're a hardwood lumber guy. So, who is Clayton Miller? Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Sure. I'm a New York resident. I live just north of Buffalo, New York, and Lewiston, New York. I'm fifth generation in my family in the hardwood lumber business. So I guess I have sawdust in my blood, which may be a blessing and maybe a curse. I'm not exactly sure. But I work for a company called Aurora Timberland, and we are headquartered just north of the city of Toronto in Ontario. And we have two main components of what we do. One side of the equation, we purchase all the hardwood lumber for Alexandria Molding, who's an industry leader in millwork. So that occupies maybe 50% of my time, as well as wholesaling and distributing lumber. So we have a strong wholesale presence in the greater Toronto area. We ship some lumber throughout the U.S. And about a year and a half ago, we brought on a gentleman to sell lumber for us in Vietnam. And that represents our largest our largest growth point of the year. So pretty much all domestic species: red oak, poplar, white hard maple, cherry. And we're shipping mostly to end users, millwork manufacturers, stair makers, cabinet shops. If you make something out of hardwood lumber, we'll sell it to you. So that's just a little bit about us. And like I said, I'm super happy to be here.
Now, do you actually do any of the resawing into specific lengths for your customer base?
We do not. So we're, I guess a typical wholesaler. We're buying directly from sawmills that do, and then shipping it through our various channels to our customers.
All right. That the Vietnam component that you say is growing, that it seems a little surprising given the shipping constraints, and you hear, oh my gosh, there's 100 and some ships off of LA, and the price of a container is through the roof. How has that all come to be that you're getting more business through Vietnam?
Yeah, it started actually. We got an inquiry, and someone asked. It was a nice inquiry, and someone asked if we shipped lumber to Vietnam, and we're a company that generally doesn't like to say no. So we said, of course we can ship to Vietnam. And, we took the order, and we kind of, the first load, we kind of figured out the logistics and the procedures as we went along. But, Vietnam right now represents just a massive market. And there's a ton of, growth internally in Vietnam, organic growth in their economy. But after the tariffs of a few years ago, the hardwood lumber tariffs, a lot of companies, Chinese-based companies, moved from China to Vietnam and established manufacturing sites in Vietnam. So it's a large growth opportunity, and as well, they're using products in Vietnam that we don't generally sell in the U.S. So the strategy is how do we interface with our mills, and instead of buying one grade of lumber, how can we buy as many grades of lumber as possible, ship the higher grade material to domestic customers, and then the low grade material, which is primarily what they use overseas, to Vietnamese customers. And that's given us a really good value proposition to our sawmills. And so we're kind of leveraging different avenues for different grades, and it's proved really successful.
Sure, that completely makes sense. All right, I'm going to do a quick screen share here, and there you are. So let's baseline what's going on in hardwood lumber. We can tell a familiar story in hardwood that sounds probably a whole lot like softwood, but let's rip through it real quick. What are we looking at on this chart?
Yeah, so the chart kind of, it tracks pretty much the start of the pandemic until present day. And as you can see, kind of in May of 2020 there, pretty much was when there was a lot of there was a lot of uncertainty in the market, and mills were very reluctant to bring in any raw material, produce anything that they weren't sure they were going to sell. So, for all intents and purposes, the sawmill industry in producing of hardwood lumber came to a halt. And obviously, as we know, demand didn't come to a halt, and in many respects, demand accelerated even through the uncertainty. So what you kind of see from May of 2020 even to present day is an effort to bring on more capacity and produce more lumber, and it's been a struggle. And even today, we're having trouble. September, October, November have been relatively flat, and that represents what many consider good production. So we're kind of still below where we need to be, even though we've recouped a lot of that production, and the stagnation in production that we're seeing now, that's still impacting pricing and availability to our customers and to all hardwood lumber users around the world.
Right. This is what I'm fascinated here is that we haven't gotten to the pre-COVID production levels.
Sure.
What do you think is limiting that?
Well, I mean, we haven't gotten there, and I'm not sure we ever will. One of the anecdotal theories that people had were after the China the lumber tariffs to China really depressed the market. We saw a lot of producers, a lot of sawmills, a lot of manufacturers go out of business or shutter. And the working theory was once prices rebound, once the market reacclimates, these companies will come back online and start producing again. And that hasn't happened. There have been a few that have come back online, but not nearly enough to make up for the demand that we see. So if you were to say, how are we going to get back to pre-pandemic levels? The chart in September, October, and November tells us that everyone is trying their best to increase production. Log flows are good at the mills generally. Labor is improving generally at the mills, but we're still not there. So it's going to be hard, and it's going to take it's going to take a large investment from new companies and new providers to come back online to increase production of hardwood lumber.
What was the tariff situation? I'm vaguely familiar, but I don't remember exactly what was going on there.
Yeah, they imposed as part of the trade war with President Trump. There was tariffs imposed on lumber being brought to China, which increased the price landed overseas, which basically the Chinese in large swaths basically stopped bringing red oak, which was the main species that it impacted overseas, which just killed the market. I mean, red oak is in hardwoods. Red oak is the most abundant in the forest. It's the most produced out of any hardwood lumber species. So if you're a sawmill, you have no choice but to cut red oak and to produce red oak, right? It's just part of the species mix. So that was a death knell for a lot of manufacturers. If for nothing else, they couldn't move a product that they had the most of. So the red oak market has certainly come back from that, but it left in its wake a lot of companies that just couldn't make it.
Okay, that all makes sense. All right. So why does hardwood lumber matter to softwood lumber? I mean, obviously, we can talk about the products that are in a house, a finished house. Here's why I think you have to finish a house. You can't just go out and frame up a bunch of houses and not finish them. So in the finished house, you're talking about cabinets. Number one, molding, cabinets, stairs. Do you see hardwood limiting the ability to finish houses right now? Like what is happening with your customers and their business?
Sure. It's a good point. I once had someone tell me that that softwoods were the bones of the house and hardwood lumber were the organs of the
It's good.
body.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
So that's it kind of makes sense. What we're seeing is, obviously home starts are pretty good, and their business demand is strong, but as we talk with customers, they're backing up with, say, finished stairs or finished cabinets at their shops because they're running into supply chain issues and supply chain delays on site, right? So they're producing these products, and their ability to install them is being pushed by, and sometimes weeks and sometimes months, and things on the back end are kind of grinding to a halt. And obviously, the builders aren't getting paid until what you said, Mike. The millwork's inside, the stairs inside, the hardwood floors are laid, and the house is complete. So we're seeing, and again, whether it's lumber or whether it's even piping, electrical things. There's all these components that are not allowing, in many cases, hardwood lumber product manufacturers to get in the job site, install their product, get paid, and get on to the next job.
That's interesting. So, as good as the housing market is, they're still slightly challenged in finishing off these houses, and these moving the product's probably sold. The demand is there. They just can't get it installed.
Exactly. I mean, and then you have, I was talking with a stair manufacturer in Toronto 2 weeks ago, and then you kind of have that, but then you also have, under normal circumstances with labor, he has 5 or 6 guys on a site, hanging the stairs, for lack of a better term, and now he has 2. Right. So a job that would, to fit, to put the stairs in a house on a normal occasion may take a day and a half. Now it's taking him 3 days to do one house. So if they have the whole subdevelopment contract, extrapolate that, double time for one house over 30 houses. And it's kind of this, they can never catch up, right? They can never catch up. Labor is an issue, both manufacturing and installing. And it's kind of, it's becoming, 4 or 5 months ago, I think it was a nuisance. And I think now it's becoming a concern, just their ability to get products finished and get paid for their work when the home's completed.
Let's talk about the price of these products. When we getting ready for the call, you said some prices have doubled.
Yeah. So the price of, take poplar, which is maybe the most ubiquitous, hardwood lumber species there is. It's interior moldings. Pretty much, if it's solid, if you have an interior millwork package, there's a high probability it's poplar. That price is up 84% this December from last December.
Okay.
Poplar is on the market right now more than red oak. So I mean, that's just that's bizarro world. That should never happen. So prices are up. There's starting to be an easing of pricing. The velocity by which prices have been going up in the main species has certainly slowed. But what's preventing the downward dip is the slide we started off with. There's not enough production to have available on the market for competition for guys like me to lower our price to get orders. Our pricing is remaining firm, and quite frankly, right now, there's no incentive to lower price because we're moving product at higher prices so quickly that there's just really no downward pressure that we're hearing from our customers saying, hey, I can find it 10, 15% less from your competition. Where those conversations just aren't happening. And our customers in the US and Canada, as well as Vietnam, the push right now is still supply chain integrity, keeping material coming in, keeping material going through their machines. And that's the number one concern that our customers still have.
It's such an interesting situation dilemma. Is you've got this underlying demand that will support the market. In fact, we could take more, but you just can't get it put in. You can't get it delivered. There's truly a governor on this.
It's a great way to put it. Absolutely.
And I mean, we're seeing this in softwood lumber as well. It's like the balance between supply and demand is almost so perfectly in lined up, and there isn't enough um, demand to bring on more capacity. To bring on more capacity, there just isn't enough labor generally to bring on more capacity to
Exactly.
produce more lumber, to produce more framed houses, the bones. It's like everything is just really kind of locked up in this. Here's where we're at. We're definitely not going down in the number of housing units, but we sure aren't going up. And um, the whole system, there aren't a lot of excesses. There's not a lot of deficient supply situations.
Yep.
That it's these little micro shocks that hit the system.
Yeah, and that equilibrium. I mean, the way I see it, I mean, it's razor thin. I mean, we're obviously softwoods and hardwoods. The harvesting of the product is beholden to weather. We're a few weeks of rain in the Appalachian region of the U.S. or a hurricane or something like that to just throw off. As you said, kind of this equilibrium of supply and demand. So the if you view it as a recovery in the hardwood lumber market in terms of prices, equalizing, we've told our customers, there's not going to be a collapse. There's no signs pointing to, if poplar is up 75, 85%, it's not going to drop 60%, right? I mean, there's no signs of a collapse, because the root issue being in my estimation anyway, there's no way that, based on how strong demand is, that supply will be able to put enough new product on the marketplace for people to buy to lower the price, double digits. It's just not going to happen, because the fundamental problem is there's not enough producers. There's not enough sawmills. There's not enough people at the front of the supply chain.
All right, so this parlays us into the next question. And
Yeah.
when we were talking, you brought up the different products performing the same function.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of hardwood molding, you use the frame imitation molding. So what is an imitation molding?
Well, I mean, there seems to be a growing list all the time. I mean, there's MDF products. That's probably the main competitor right now for moldings. But certainly, that list of competitors increases drastically in flooring. I mean, there's all sorts of imitation non-hardwood products for flooring. Certainly that way in cabinets. So there's all these kind of new entrants that are coming into the market, and I think the supply chain issues. Many of those products come from overseas or come from foreign countries. So I think the supply chain issues of getting those products to market have really helped keep hardwood lumber finished products strong, because you just can't get MDF right now. I mean, we had customers that were using, say, MDF for door jambs that couldn't find door jambs, that were calling us looking for poplar, right? So obviously that's having an impact on rising prices, because you have people that aren't in that space. They're saying, well, I still have to make door jambs, right? I still have to make door jambs. My customers don't want to hear about supply outages or sawmill problems. So what can you give me that's like MDF? Well, we can give you 8-foot poplar. Send it. Just send it, right? So,
Yep.
but yeah, there's products that are out there that are coming to the market that have been around for a while. But as we talked about before the call, those products are getting really good. They're getting better. They're getting better. They're lasting longer. There's more SKUs. There's more combinations. So it's definitely a threat, especially as the supply chain issues cool down, and those products can come to market with ease.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm still waiting for alternative products to come into the lumber framing package.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of see them in, you could call the trusses, and these building components are slightly
Mhm.
different. Actually, we had we had a guy on a few weeks ago from MyTech, and there this new old product. It was a floor joist that had metal webs,
Okay.
and they had developed the product back in the late 60s and 70s, and it just never caught on because lumber was so plentiful that whole time. And all of a sudden we get to today and they're like, yeah, it's got a resurgence.
Sure. And that's a good point, Mike. I mean, one of the things that I think is happening too is, say you're building a house and your price now is 20% more than it was a year ago, right? So the husband and wife are sitting around and they're saying, well, we got to do something. Like, we're way over budget here. So they call the builder and they say, hey, I know materials a lot. What can we do to kind of get back more in budget, right? And I'm frightened that the first thing that's going to go are solid hardwood products, because to your point, there's only the framing components. You don't have much of a choice, whether it be code. And I don't know much about softwoods, but whether it be code or whether it be durability, whatever, you pretty much are beholden to those prices. But if you're trying to cut costs, are homeowners saying, okay, well, instead of solid poplar moldings, maybe we take those out, we put MDF. They'll kind of look the same, won't be quite as nice, but hey, we gotta save some money based on not only the softwood lumber price increases, but then topped on that, the hardwood lumber price increases. And to your point, the framing component, there's not many imitations, but imitation flooring, there's literally thousands of combinations that you could put in your house.
And I think in today's world, you start out calling something imitation, and all of a sudden it becomes innovative. It becomes better, right?
Mhm.
Like hardwood molding, it's been around forever. How much better can you make hardwood molding? It you can't improve it.
I,
Um,
I'm not sure you can't. I mean, I'm not sure you can improve it, but I do think that as we move forward, any hardwood lumber company in the supply chain, I think we have to do a better job of listening to our customers. Hey, we don't make that now. We don't produce that now. But if that's what is hot, if that's what's being influenced, let's figure out a way to make it. Like, let's have an alternative to the alternative, right? Let's do a double back. And I think that's going to be the next the next wave of really, how do we as wholesalers and how do we align with what the general public want and listen to what they want more, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's a truckload of lumber, I hope you can use it, figure it out. How do we customize it? Because that's what our competition and imitations are doing. They're listening to demands of customers.
It's so interesting that you say this. We're in the midst of that ourselves.
Okay.
This summer, we brought on a CTO who comes from outside the industry, and we're in the midst of kind of a redesign of some back end technology.
Okay.
And he's like, "What do our customers want?"
Yeah.
And they didn't even know what they wanted until we came to market. Now they do. Now they know. Well, that doesn't work. So his perspective on this, coming from outside the industry, is very innovative.
Sure.
And how often have we asked as an industry, what do our customers want? Like,
Without
the softwood lumber industry, they haven't ever done it. Guess what they make? They make 2x4s and 2x6s, and they do them in 2-foot lengths and in one or a couple different grades, and that's it.
Yeah.
When's the last time they went and said, let's sit down with the architects and come up with a different product?
Sure.
Now, we build houses the way we build them because that's the products we have to use, as opposed to what could we do? How could we build these houses?
Yeah. And I mean, and it's understanding how people are influenced, right? I mean, and a lot of what is driving new products is people are watching, whether it's home improvement renovation shows on television, whether they're on Instagram or whatever other social medias, and they're scrolling through things or looking at things. Then they go into their independent lumber yard, their local lumber yard, and they say, hey, I'm looking for X. I want to buy X. Why do you want to buy X? I don't know. We saw it on TV. It looks great. Do you carry X? We got to get out. We got to have products where we can say, yes, we have that as a hardwood lumber industry, or we can make that. Because one thing we're really good at in the hardwood lumber industry is making things, right? Like, we cut down trees, we saw them, we kiln dry them. We're very good at making things, but there's just a disconnect that I see. That, I mean, again, business is great, but how do we take it to the next level? How do we kind of ward off these imitators? It's understanding how influencing works and what is driving the customers to make decisions that
When
Yep.
business is great is when you really need to innovate, ironically. That's when the money's there. There's such a pile of money at home building right now, or in home building. Someone's going to figure out a way to do something better and cheaper and dominate the status quo.
Sure. And I'm
And
seeing, I mean, I visit a lot of sawmills just as kind of part of my everyday responsibilities. And there is some rather large investment in that happening. You're starting to see it. I mean, people have, to your point, people have money that a year ago in their business plans or their budgets weren't expecting for, right? So they have this kind of, in some regards, a windfall. So there is that technology. They're starting to lean on technology more and understand that things are great now, but how do we keep them great? How do we take that next step?
so, just looking at some questions. Here we got Southern Yellow Pine is the same way. Now mills are popping up everywhere, but we still haven't regained pre-pandemic levels. Yeah, that is true. Thank you for saying that, Skylar. Um, all right, so we know that softwood kind of leads the charge,
Mm-hmm.
right?
For sure.
But as of right now, it seems like the gas pedal's pressed. You guys are pressed. Um, there's no indication that this thing's slowing down. Um, do you have any vision into potential hiccups? I know you talked about storms,
Yeah.
but is there anything that you see that could derail the situation or that could just change it? Like, what's the
Yeah.
crystal ball say?
Yeah. That literally is $1 million question, Mike. That's a good question. I think for the next year that the prices are going to retreat, but my crystal ball tells me that maintaining supply, adequate supply to keep our keep machines going, that's going to be the number one concern. I don't think it's going to be a 911 fire all hands on deck, but companies that lose sight of the importance of maintaining incoming raw material, if they relax or if they're not as diligent about it, someone else is going to scoop up that material, and they're going to be kind of at the back of the line. So prices won't be the main concern in 2022, but being diligent about maintaining your supply chain and raw materials coming into your shop, that's going to be the biggest challenge, I think, that as an industry we have.
Yeah, we see that. That same thing happening in softwood. We're used to elevated prices already. What we can't have is we can't run out. There's too much demand. We can't run out.
And I think this year's taught a valuable lesson to all of us, right? I mean, at the end of the day, are we quibbling over $10 a thousand or a penny a board foot, or are we most interested in making sure our molders don't run out of material to run, right? And so even some of our most, you always have customers that are nickel and diamond, they're always looking for a deal. Even then, their buying patterns have changed where I need a fair price, but I just need you to commit that you're going to get me the substrate because that's what's most important to me. And that's what's most important to my customers.
For sure. You can't sell from an empty shelf. All right. So last question.
Yeah.
So what does Clayton see that other people don't? Coming, like, what's the big vision here? It can be for home building. It can be for the society in general. But what's going on, rolling around in your brain that other people don't think about?
A lot. I think we talked about a valuable lesson in terms of buying, in the hardwood lumber market. But I think once we kind of get out of this pandemic kind of mindset, I think we're going to reevaluate a lot of things that we've done, and I think we're going to, especially at a business level, we're going to change some mindsets, and we're going to be, I don't want to say thankful that we made it, but I think we're going to take some deep breaths and just be more grateful for everything that we've gone through. Sometimes you need a big shock to the system to kind of wake you up to what's important in life, and I think that's going to be next up. I think we're going to hopefully everyone just take a deep breath and exhale and kind of maybe wipe our glasses and see life a little bit more clear.
Hard reset on society.
I sure hope so.
Excellent. Well, Clayton, thank you very much. It's all. I think it's so important to look outside of your little ecosystem. Um, it's kind of fascinating to hear that the hardwood industry looks at us in the softwood industry for direction, and
And
softwood's
I,
kind of
and I
cool.
think we should more. I mean, it's everything over the past 2 years that has happened to hardwoods. There's been about a 6 month head start in the same trends in softwoods, and I never knew that. Never tracked that. So I think both sides. I think we can. We're in different channels, but I think we definitely can maybe collaborate and learn a little bit more, just based on maybe making decisions out there.
Look, the speed that information moves today is light speed compared to what it was 20 years ago,
Sure, sure,
um, even 5 years ago.
sure.
So cool. All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
Clayton.
Thank you, sir. I
Everyone, have a
appreciate the opportunity.
no problem. No problem. I think, I believe we're going to have a smart market next week. We'll probably have a fun one because it's going to be Christmas Eve. But for all of you, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a week.